Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
I'm just letting people in, so be sure and grab a nice cool beverage and we'll take a couple minutes to get settled. And I have everyone muted right now, but there will be time for questions at the end. But I'm going to let people in now. Karen's got your book. Karen's got your book.
Thank you, Karen. I'll give you a big heart. We're going to talk about the next one. I'll give you a quick peek. That's all you get. That's it. There's two. They're like brother and sister, but that's all I'm saying. We'll say more later. Thank you, Karen.
Karen lives here in Boise with me, and she's a fellow doula.
Oh,
Yes.
I love doulas. I love anyone who does this work, really. Me
too. Me too. Welcome, everybody. We're just letting people in the room. If you want to grab your something to drink and make yourself cozy. I am going to make, I see Darcy I'm going to make Darcy a co-host to see if she can help me. Hi, Darcy. Thank you for coming. Let's see. Make co-host. Thank you, Darcy. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited that you guys are all here. I don't know how far, maybe if you guys could, if you think about it, maybe you can in the chat, we'd like to welcome you and maybe you can let us know where you are calling in from. I would love to see that. Cincinnati.
WKRP. I'm probably aging myself now that I've seen
that. Cynthia from Southern California, welcome, welcome. Karen from Boise. Oh, we have a new. Woohoo!
Ooh, look at all these wonderful places.
Gabby, you tell us where you're from.
I'm from California. I'm from up north. I'm about 20 minutes south of San Francisco.
Very cool. Very cool. Darcy is in Southern California now, but she's from Boise. Ooh, Louisiana.
I love it when I get to see where people are from because you think like it's everywhere. Zoom, COVID was awful for so many reasons, especially as a nurse. If any of you worked during COVID, you can appreciate this. But one of the things that came out was we found ways to connect with people despite it all, right? And Zoom, I had so many wonderful family visits over Zoom so we could still stay connected. And it's allowed us to have a wider community. Well, when I do my classes or just anything that I'm doing that I'm speaking at, we've got New Zealand and South Africa and Zimbabwe, places that I can't even say very well, and all over the world, the UK. And I mean, I find that amazing that we can all collectively come together. And some of you, it's 2 a.m, and some of you are 2 hours before us. And I think that's wonderful. I love that we can do that.
Me too. Me too. And I get to see everyone's faces. I think I enjoy seeing everyone's faces. If you feel comfortable enough, anyone who is not showing their beautiful face, we'd love to see you, but we honor anyone's choice to also have their video off. Whatever feels comfortable for you guys. Thank you all for joining us. So we're letting some other folks in. Darcy, I'm going to let you, if you don't mind, just maybe allow, if I miss people, if you could let them in. But I'm going to go ahead and start and do some housekeeping items. First of all, I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us. I am just thrilled and humbled that we have our special guest today. And thank you, everybody. If you're hopping on, please remember to put in the chat where you're from. We'd love to see where you're zooming in from. I did, as you probably noticed, this is being recorded. I don't normally record this particular event, but since we have our very special guests, I wanted to be able to record this for the people that won't be able to make it tonight. I also feel like Gabby has a lot of important things to share. I felt like it was really important to record. Again, if you don't have your video on, I completely understand, but we do encourage you to do that if that feels right for you, and we'd love to see your beautiful faces. We have decided to just go ahead and mute everyone upon entry, and we're going to go ahead and keep everyone muted during this event, and then we will also at the end have you guys if you could also just please hold your chat questions during our talk, and then we'll open it up for questions, and Gabby will be so gracious and kind to answer our questions at the end. So if you could please just stay muted and then just save your questions till the end, and we'll let you know when that time will start. I want to thank Darcy so much for helping me be the co-host. She's my superstar Zoom extraordinaire. So thank you, Darcy, very much. And then I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. We will finish at 8 o'clock. And I just am really super incredibly humbled and feeling so blessed that our special guest, Gabby, has joined us. I just want to take a breath because I'm a little nervous and excited. I can never really tell if it's anxiety or if it's excitement, but I'm feeling just thrilled. So I'm just going to take a breath. If you want to join me, just taking a breath. And that's what we're here, right? We're all here. We're here to embrace the conversation, this organic conversation about death and dying, and just honoring the breath that we have until we take our last breath. I created this space because I was doing death over dinner at an independent living. I'm still doing that, where we just have these organic conversations over a lovely meal. And I had found some folks that were asking questions and wanted to get involved. And I created this space about 3 months ago, and it continues to grow. And I just can't believe how many people are joining us tonight. So lastly, I just wanted to share one little thing that my father passed away about 13 years ago now. It was July 17th, his 13th year of his passing. And I think that beautiful end-of-life experiences can be so beautiful. And some of them are very hard. I know this to my core, but fortunately enough, my dad had a beautiful end-of-life experience, and I got to be at his bedside with him. He was at a hospice unit at a VA hospital, and one of the nurses and this is back in the day, I didn't have music on my phone. And so this lovely hospice nurse gave me a CD player with some CDs, and she burned a CD. My dad's favorite artist was Willie Nelson. So I played Willie Nelson, and she also said, this other CD is a little new agey. I'm not sure if you or your dad would be interested, but I'm just going to share it with you. And I fell in love with it. And it was just this beautiful music that really comforted me. I think it comforted my dad too, because he seemed to really relax after the music was playing. And I feel music is so healing. And so he had this beautiful end of life experience. I was reading him the book Alchemist. He passed away on page 57, and while I was reading it to him, and as I was cleaning up his things after he passed away, I really desperately wanted to take the CD home with me, but I did not. I kept it there to share with the next person. And I kept thinking of this music, and I didn't remember the name of it or anything like that. But a month or two later, one of the physicians that I worked with gifted me this, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's a book called Graceful Passages. And so this is what she gifted me 13 years ago. And it's a 2 CD set. So there's one CD is with words, and then the other CD is just the music. So I felt like that was pretty amazing that it was gifted back to me. But I just have a little passage that I was going to read just to start us off with. This is the message: air to breathe, light to see, a soul needs nourishment all its own. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever tradition guides your way, there comes a time when we all need to be touched through the heart.
Mm.
And I felt like that was appropriate because I'm so honored to introduce Gabrielle Elise Jimenez. We all know her as Gabby from the Hospice Heart. And I just want to introduce her. She is an author. She's a hospice nurse, an end of life doula, and a conscious death. Am I saying that correctly?
Conscious
Conscious
dying educator.
Conscious Dying Educator. She's an author and she has her website and a huge following on Facebook called the Hospice Heart. And yeah, so Gabby, would you like to speak and share a little bit about you and anything else that you feel called to sharing right now?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Christine. I'm really happy to be here. I love seeing all of you here and seeing where you're from. So thank you for sharing that as well. My name is Gabby. I'm a hospice nurse and an end-of-life doula. I started in 2019, I started the Hospice Heart Facebook page because I wanted to have a safe place to talk about death and dying. No one asks me how my day is because they're afraid I'm going to tell them, oh, my day was amazing. I had the most beautiful death. Right. And then you see the look on their face like, oh, God, here she goes again. And I think that they've stopped inviting me to parties because I make everyone cry. And I don't mean to. I just have so much I want to share. And I think people think, wow, she works around death. This must be just so depressing. But for those of you who are in this field or are just familiar with it, you know that's not what we see. We see last breaths and the sacred act of the last breath. But what we see is culture and tradition and faith and family and love and life. We see everything that leads to the last breath, right? That connection between the human beings as they go along their life with one another in whatever role they might play, but how beautiful that is. I see the last breath. Of course, it's sad. No one wants to say goodbye to someone that they love, but I feel incredibly honored to be able to be present for that. And so when someone tells me or asks me what I do for a living, I can't wait to tell them. And when we're sitting at a party and we're all having this wonderful time, yes, do I bring up death in some way? Yes, it's almost intentional. I think I do it deliberately, especially at the grocery store. I love having them see my name tag, right? And they say, oh, do you work for hospice? Yes, I'm a hospice nurse. And then oh, my aunt was on hospice or my sister was on hospice or bless you for the work you do. And I think I love that because the whole reason I started the Hospice Heart was to create a safe place to have the conversation. I think people think that if they talk about death and dying, it'll happen sooner. But that's not the truth. Any more than not talking about it will slow it down. We are all going to die. We all should be well aware of our own mortality at this point. And instead of contemplating our death, we should contemplate the time that we're gifted and live our life, right? Because it's such a gift and such a blessing. And so I started the Hospice Heart Facebook page with the idea of having a platform where we can make the conversation a little less scary to have. And it's evolved over time, especially during COVID, because everyone was so isolated and it was a safe place that people felt comfortable coming to and talking about what they were experiencing during that time. I don't know if any of you were on that page at that time, but I had COVID. I was sick for 23 days, I think. So I blogged every day about my day and what it felt like. And then when I was better and I was working as a nurse, I also talked about what it was like being a nurse during COVID, which was so hard. But this community built, and now it's like almost 140,000 people. And that doesn't mean I'm popular. It means that people are dying, people are grieving, and people are supporting and loving people who are dying and grieving. We're a community, and we are not a solo act. I am not a solo act. I am part of a community. And so what I'm trying to do right now is spread the word and not be an education hoarder. Like, I don't want to stuff all my stuff in a box, right? It's not just mine. I think, what can I do to help to improve the way people are cared for when they die? It's things like this. It's bringing people together and talking about it and making it more comfortable and less scary, and to maybe inspire others to do this work, or at the very least to hand them the tools so that they can provide care to someone that they love who is dying or grieving. And so being able to be invited to moments like this with such beautiful people like yourselves makes me think, if just one of you decides to do this work, or one of you feels a little bit more confident at the bedside, then I've done my job for the day. And that makes me happy. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much, Gabby. You touched on the fear, and just, I think the they quote that fear is the number one, or death is the number one fear now. It used to be public speaking, and now it's fear. And I think what you provide is a opportunity to just educate people, and helps them to be a little less afraid. I think can I bring up your book now?
Sure.
So I don't know if you guys have this copy, but this is Gabby's latest book, End of Life Tips. And it's so good. And you can see I have all my little markings already, and it's highlighted up because there's just some nuggets in there. And one of the many things that you talk about is—
Thank you, Ophelia.
leaning in, and then also reducing the fear. And then self-care. I was hoping maybe you can explore a little bit about leaning in and self-care. And then also I was hoping to maybe hear about, can they hear us? Can you share a little bit about self-care?
Sure. I think, if you don't mind, I'm just going to talk about the intention with End of Life Tips first.
Yes, please.
End of Life, I've written 4 other books, and they're my journey. I became a nurse really late in life, in my late 40s. I had a difficult time going to nursing school at that age. So my first book was about that. My second book was going back down memory lane and realizing that all along I was meant to come here just from childhood experiences. And then the other 2 are patient stories and lessons that I've learned, and just what hospice means to me books. And then I decided to do a series, and the series is a collection of easier to read, lighter books, 40 pages, and End of Life Tips are the most common. You brought up fear, the most common fears that people have at the bedside. Do they hear us? What do we do about food and water? When are they going to die? What is this sign? What is that sign? What does this mean? And so in this book, I address all of those. Some are little tiny little 1 paragraph, some are a couple paragraphs, but it's really helping people who are at the bedside, in whatever role that might be, to be able to answer those questions, not from the clinician standpoint, but from the human being standpoint, because you don't have to have a license to provide end-of-life care. Anyone can do it, but there is fear. But the other thing, the other side of it, which is what you brought up, is the need to take care of ourselves. This work is hard, this work is heavy, and it takes its toll. Now, during the time that I was a hospice nurse and a doula, I had doula patients and hospice patients. My brother was in the ICU for 18 days, and I was at his bedside, and I really struggled with the sister hat and the nurse hat. I have all this experience, and yet I had absolutely no idea what to do, because it's really different when it happens to you. The other thing I notice at the bedside is there are things that are said, or most emotions that are expressed from the people either in the bed or at the bedside, that trigger me. As a griever myself, I am constantly experiencing trigger moments. And I think we're all capable of that. And when you work in end-of-life care and see as much death as I see, things are triggered. When my dad died, I sat 15 feet away from his bed and just stared at him. If I only knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. I think many of us can say that. And when I'll see a daughter say goodbye to her father, I have 2 reactions. One, I feel a sense of empathy for them. And then I feel a sense of sadness for me that I didn't have that. So there's these trigger things that happen all the time. And I think it's important that we are honest about that with ourselves, that we're honest with how hard this work can be, that we are honest with how exhausted emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. I mean, it taps into all of that. And so self-care is mandatory. I didn't do it well before. I certainly didn't do it during COVID, and it took its toll. I got really sick. My body failed me, and I had to, this last year has been spent getting myself back together, and it starts with self-care. And that means making sure you sleep, making sure that you eat well, that you hydrate, making sure that you tap out, that you turn the phones off, that you don't check the company emails saying, what happened that night, that you really do step away from it all. There is no rule that says that you have to be present 24/7, whether it's for a family member or this is your career. You have to take a break. And if you don't, it will break you. And so self-care is mandatory. In all my classes, I talk about that. I encourage that. I remind people when I'm training new nurses, that'll be the first thing I say. And part of self-care is admitting that you are human, admitting that this can take its toll, and just saying, God, I could really use a walk right now, or I just want to cry. And maybe I don't want you to ask me the depths of what I'm feeling. Maybe I just need you to say, I'll walk alongside you. And part of that means being able to reach out to someone else and say, I could really use your support. Maybe it's just your presence, but would you give me 5 minutes? Give me 10 minutes, give me a walk around the block. If you don't do that, your body will let you know, and it'll take its toll. So self-care is so important.
Wow, that was a lot, Gabby. Thank you. I think caring for, just for my own personal experience working in the healthcare field and then raising my teenage boys and then being a caregiver, my husband and I did an intense time of about 5 years of taking care of all of our loved ones. And my mother-in-law was in a skilled nursing facility trying to get her home, but knew in my heart that I couldn't be a 24-hour caregiver for her. So she was in a facility. My father-in-law was living with us. And then my mother, we were trying to keep as independent as possible. She was about 5 miles away from us. And the teenagers were growing up, and my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my mother, my grandmother, our dog, and a huge fire happened in our community that 85 souls were lost in that fire. An entire town was lost, and it's just within hours. And that happened within 2 years. And I thought I was doing self-care, but I was not. I was just surviving. And I really physically, my body I just got really sick. And it does, I think the self-care component is huge. And I'm just a huge advocate for caregiver burnout. I just believe to my core that caregivers are the unsung heroes and need to be recognized for the work that they do because it's huge. And just offering, I think for me, realizing people not necessarily will ask for help. And so if you just say, please let me know if you need help, that doesn't necessarily qualify as offering help. And just offering to go to the grocery store or bringing a meal over and stuff like that. I took care of a man today whose wife, he's super young. And I asked that dumb question. I should know by now, but I asked, how are you? And she just fell apart. And I thought, oh, Gabby told me not to pay attention.
We should explain though the why about that.
Why is that, Gabby?
I went to go see a patient one day. This is about 3 years ago, and I met with his wife, and I said, how are you doing today? Because that's our automatic question, and it makes sense. How are you doing? We want to know that. And she said, she was the patient. She said, how do you think I'm doing? I'm dying. And I thought, okay, so there has to be another way to do that without going right in. Now, some people might want to be asked that question, so this might not work across the board. But what I've learned to say is, it's really good to see you today, or I was looking forward to this visit. It's nice to see you. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you're feeling right now that you'd want to share with me? Because when you ask a person who's dying how they're doing, they might kind of not get offended necessarily, but some of them are like, how do you think I'm doing? Like that's not an invitation. That's a closed door. And so I want to keep the door open. And I posted this on my Facebook page a couple days, about a week or so ago, and there was a lot of back and forth. And there were some people that said, I think you should ask. Then ask. You get to do whatever you want to do. I'm not the boss of you. But what my advice would be is that you enter into that conversation with a little less straight up and forward. I would say maybe just ease into it and see what they're comfortable with.
Thank you. I'm learning as I go still.
Me
Oh,
too.
I appreciate that. So you have written some other amazing books. And so this one is number 5. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I heard maybe that there's some other exciting news. Would you like to share about that?
Yes. So I have my first 4 books, which I love. They're super personal. They're about my journey and who I am and how this all came to be. And I love them. I love them a lot. I'm a storyteller. So the books are stories, but also I have a lot of patient stories in them. And then I wanted to create this series. And the first one, as we talked about, was End of Life Tips, which is, I think, a wonderful, helpful guide to anyone providing end of life care. So this series is 4 books. And that one was the first one. The next one that just went live today is called Dignity Day. Dignity Day is about medical aid in dying, which I am an advocate for. I am not going to try to change your mind if you're not. That's not my job. But what I'm trying to do is to help people understand where someone is coming from when they make that decision, what motivates that decision, and how we can help support them if they do, whether you support the act or not. And you're allowed to not support it. You have the right to have a choice, as do they. Now, one of the things that I feel strongly about is when someone is given a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis, their autonomy, voice, and choice are taken from them. They didn't choose to die. They didn't choose to have an illness. They didn't choose to have pain or suffering, which a good portion of those diagnoses do bring to someone. They're already dying, and they've chosen to end it on their terms, to have autonomy one last time, which is how I see it. So I wrote this book for them, for the ones who make the brave decision, for the people who get it but need more information, for the people who are providing care for them. So I threw in all my tips and tools. I've seen 100 people take these medications. So I threw in some tips and tools so that anyone can be supportive. And for someone who does not support this choice, the only thing I ask is that you don't walk away. Can I read a poem, Christine?
Please.
I wrote a poem for this book, and maybe this will help you to understand where I'm coming from. When someone has received a terminal diagnosis and they've been told they have less time, what this translates most to them is that they've been moved to the front of the line, a line no one wants to stand in, a line that can often bring fear, a line that changes everything for them and lets them know that death is near. So many things are taken from them, most importantly, their autonomy and choice, leaving them dependent on everyone and everything, no longer having a voice. So if given an opportunity to say goodbye to pain, to end their suffering and to feel free again, they need to know we support them, that we will not walk away. They need to know that whatever they choose, we are here to stay. That was my motivation with this book, not to change anyone's mind, not to preach about this decision because it's hard, but to bring some tools and information to help people understand why the decision was made. And even for those who don't support it, to give them the tools and words to still support someone they love while still standing true to what matters to them, because oftentimes the resistance is religious based. And that's true important too. I'm never going to judge someone for that. And so this book is my way of saying, don't walk away, and to find a way to be present in whatever way you're capable of. And I do hand over tools. I don't talk about the protocols or the legalities. There's enough information about that. There's only 11 states right now that it's legal in. I don't talk about each state's protocols, but what I do is I have some resources in here, a list of resources, places that you can find that information if you want it. But really, this book is, like I said, it's allowing you to give someone you love the permission to make the brave decision and letting them know that they aren't doing this alone. And I see someone just said that they don't see it on Amazon. It is on Amazon. If you type in my name, Gabrielle Elise Jimenez, or you type in, when I do it, I always type in, what would Gabby say? Because that's one of my books. And then when you get there, you can see all my other books. Dignity Day just went live today. So you might have to move around a little bit to try to find it, but it's there. But both of these books are part of a 4-book series. The 4th and 5th book will come out in November, December. One is Grief, which is probably going to be a really big one because there's a lot of grief. And the 4th one is going to be about ritual and ceremony, which is coming from the doula perspective on helping others with things like self-care and grief and death and dying and peace and forgiveness. So I'm going to write a whole book just about ritual and ceremony and how you can honor everything that you are feeling or support someone else who's feeling the same.
Thank you so much. As you were talking, I always reminded, I have a friend who has, not that we ever get to choose, our diagnosis chooses us. And my instinct is to run. It's just too painful to see her suffering. And it is hard. And my instinct is just, this is too hard. And because I'm already grieving this person and I'm choosing to stay. And I really want to lean in and be of support to this beautiful soul. And that's so hard. It goes against my nature, but because I want to be able to, I want everything to be okay, right? I want her to live, but we're all going to have our end of life experience. But I go back to that leaning in. It's hard to lean in. It's super uncomfortable sometimes, but I'm grateful and I'm willing to just continue to keep trying to show up for her. And the medical aid in dying is one that we'll need to lean into and support people in their choice. So thank you for that.
I have a saying, and you've probably heard, if you follow me on Facebook, you've probably heard me say it, but I want you to really hear these words. Meet them where they are, not where we want them to be. Because it's not about us. Their diagnosis, their dying process, their struggle, we have a reaction to that, right? We feel something deeply. We don't want them to die. I get all of that. But what Christine said is so right on, in that we have to learn how to lean in. And what that means to me is not necessarily physically leaning in. It's about meeting them where they are. One of the things that I have in Dignity Day, I have 2 things. One it says you can ask questions. And the other is I ask questions too. So you can ask questions. What do you need from me? How can I support you? What would make you the most comfortable? And then I'll ask questions like, what are you having the hardest time with? Who do you want here? Who do you not want here? What do you see your end of life plan? I'm a doula, right? So I do a lot of that sort of, I call it choreographing a beautiful end of life plan for someone. So one of the first questions I'll ask is, what kind of music do you want to hear? And the way that we can comfort someone who's going through this is not by putting it in their hands, not making them responsible for making us more comfortable, right? That's what we do. We want them to fix us because we are having a hard time with it, but so are they. This is hard for them. It's hard for us. I've watched people I love die, and I want to stop it. I want to say to the doctors, isn't there something more you can do? And I've been asked that too. On Friday, I went to go see a patient who was transitioning, which means in the process of getting ready to die. The body was starting to shut down. It was maybe he was stopping eating, he was sleeping more, he was less engaged. And so it was clear that he was declining which we refer to as transitioning. When I walked in the room, though, I knew he was dying. I knew he was actively dying. So I said to his daughter-in-law, I'm very honest, I don't mince words. I'm careful with my words and I'm considerate with my words, but I don't lie. And I don't sugarcoat things because that doesn't make it better. So I said, your father-in-law, he doesn't have much time left. He's actively dying now. And his body is going through the process where he's shutting down. She goes, no, I promised my daughter that she had 10 more days because she was out of town. And I said that I would have him hold on for 10 more days. And I could feel her pain, right? She made a promise she couldn't keep. And then she yelled at him, don't die, you can't go now. And she's, no, what can you do? What else can we do? Is there something else we can do? And there was this urgency and this panic and this emotional reaction to the reality of what was happening. And I didn't cut her off. I didn't interrupt her. I let her feel whatever she needed to feel. And then I said, don't give up on hope. I'm going to say it could be hours to days. I'm leaning towards hours. But here's what I want to tell you. If this was all you had with him, what he needs right now, at least from my perspective, I can't speak for him. I don't know him. I'm not going to pretend to know him the way you do. But what he needs right now is for you to say, we're going to take care of mom. We're going to take care of each other. I love you. Thank you for loving us the way that you have. And take that moment to say the things. Take that moment to say goodbye. Take that moment to be fully present. Because if you don't, if you spend all of that time wishing for something else, you're going to miss out on moments that could be the ones that actually help you grieve. Because if we take the moments to say goodbye and we say the things, even though they're so hard to say, then we won't have that regret in our heart. I should have stayed at his bedside longer. I should have said goodbye. I didn't say goodbye. We project our stuff on other people in general, right? That's just what we do. Everybody does it. But when someone's dying, especially women, mothers in particular, they're more worried about how everyone else is doing. So we give them permission to do that. We have to find a way to say that regardless how hard this is, I'm going to savor how much ever time I am gifted with you. And it's going to be just being present with you. And I'm going to meet you where you are, not where I wish you would be. And if you have tomorrow, if you're gifted another day, that's a bonus day. But you don't know that. We can't predict that. So it's about truly savoring time, which is about what this work teaches us. Life is fragile and it is precious. We are all going to die. There is no guarantee that any of us are going to be here tomorrow. And we tend to say, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll say that tomorrow. I'm going to hold on to this anger a little bit longer. I'm just going to be grumpy about this. I'm going to be mad about that. And then someone's taken from you and you realize that what you did was waste time. Time takes on a whole new meaning when you have less of it left, whether it's the person dying or the person at the bedside. That's why we have to appreciate time. That's why we have to be more aware of the gift of the people in our life, that their presence is a gift and it can't be taken lightly. It can't be frivolously tossed aside as though we're just going to have it for however long, because we don't know that. So when someone is dying, especially, meet them where they are, not where we want them to be. And if we can, it's hard. I know it's hard, but we have to try not to make them feel guilty about how we're feeling about what they're going through. It's so easy to do. We all do it. I don't want you to leave. Even at my own brother's bedside, I said, Ben, when you get out of here, when you get better, we're going to do better, because I hadn't talked to him in 3 years. And so I realized just how much time I wasted, how much time he wasted being angry. Some things can't be fixed. That's unfortunate, but that is the reality. But some things you can let go of. I wish so badly that I didn't hang on to my anger. I wish so badly that I didn't waste time. But I will tell you this, and this is one of the questions I'm asked all the time, is can they hear you? I tell people all the time, yes, they can. Yes, they can hear you. They hear everything you say, because I believed that. When my brother was at the bedside, I talked to him every day. I said, I love you. I'm sorry. I forgive you, because it was his fault. But I forgive you. And I hope that you forgive me too. And I'm sorry. And when you get out of here, we're going to do this better. One day he woke up. It was just one day. It was a couple hours. He woke up. They took him off the ventilator. He even had a little bit of applesauce. And I said, Ben, did you hear what I said? And he said, I'm sorry too. That tells you how important what we say at the bedside is. But it also tells you how important it is that what we say at any given time is, because that's what they take with them. We're the ones who wrap the words in silk ribbons, and we have to do it better. We have to be kinder. And if you can't make amends, that's okay, as long as you've made peace with it. But one of the things that I say in my book, Dignity Day, which is about the end of life option act, which is what we call it in California, but it's called medical aid in dying. When someone is so angry about how they feel and they've stepped away, they've walked away, I say to myself, ask yourself this: will you regret not being there? Will you regret not supporting them? And if your answer is yes, then let it go. Just let that go and be with them in this time that's so intimate and so personal and so final. Time takes on a whole new meaning when you have less of it left on both sides. We have to cherish it and respect it and appreciate it in a way that reminds us to savor every single moment, even if it's the last moment, so that we take that with us and that they do too.
Wow.
Made me,
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, that was beautiful. I think I'm so grateful for that, because I am, from taking your classes and by listening to you speak and the things that you share, that is something that I have integrated into my practice of when someone is actively dying, I whisper in their ear, good job. Thank you for being a good dad. And I think about what I would like to hear if it was me laying in that bed. And so thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. That I think is so important. I think I would want to have all of the beautiful surroundings, the sounds and the touch, but I would love to hear I love you. Good job. Good work. So
Thank
thank you for
you.
that. Thank
Just
you.
say thank you for the gift that you've been in my life, even on our most difficult days.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, that was powerful. So one of the things too I wanted to mention is my deep gratitude for all of the offerings that you have. I've learned so much from you sharing your gifts, sharing your tools, as you say, and there are so many offerings that you have. I love the ritual. I have my grief bowl that I use, that I cherish. Forgiveness is powerful. You have the best 3 months. I have my eulogy written. It's rough, but it's good. And the masterclass end of life care. And then now I noticed that you have this breath work, meditation, and yoga, which is a beautiful offering. And is there anything else that I'm missing that you offer? I want to just highlight that, because you have these beautiful offerings to share, which I love. You're just so transparent and open about sharing your tools with everyone.
Thank you. I have a couple classes. I've just recently gone through and I've cut them all in half, because I don't even have the money to take the classes I want to take. And I don't want that to get in the way. I think I deserve to be paid for it, right? But I'm going to be there anyway, right? Whether I have one person or 25 people. So I want to make them more affordable. So I just cut them all in half, like literally cut them all in half. And I'm going to keep it that way. I'm not going to increase my prices. But the ones that are coming up now is my hospice masterclass, which is August 5th. And that's a great class. It's really geared towards the terminal patient, because people are given a diagnosis they are not told what is available to them. It's almost like they're handed off to the next person, whether it's hospice or palliative care, and they don't know what is available to them. People usually wait to go on hospice because they see it as a death sentence. You're already dying. Hospice is not ending your life. Hospice can actually make your quality of life better at the end of life. Some people graduate. But there's so many things that being on hospice can offer, not just you, the patient, but the people who are caring for you. And a lot of this can reduce the expense. So I created a class that offers all of that. I talk about all the resources. I have guest speakers. I hand over so many tools because I want the person in the bed and those at the bedside to know what they have available to them. Even simple things like medications being paid for, or incontinence supplies, or wheelchairs, or there's so many things that people don't realize they don't have to pay for. And there's other things, there's misconceptions. People sign on hospice and they think they're going to get a caregiver. Caregivers are not a part of hospice. However, we do have social workers who have a list of resources that can find caregivers that can work in your budget, work on your insurance, offer some are free. I mean, there's just a lot of different resources based on what your situation is. So the Hospice Masterclass is really good, not because I'm teaching it, and I don't mean it like that. I mean it because of the information. I think people who are dying and people who are caring for those who are dying need to know this information. The other one, and that's on the following day, which is the 6th, I think, Sunday, is the one that you mentioned, the ceremony and ritual, and this one's focusing on grief. And it's a great class. It's a 2-hour class where we talk about grief and how to navigate it. And I do 2 rituals, one for letting go and one for saying goodbye. And they're beautiful rituals. I teach you how to do them yourself. And it's a great healing course. And then the one you brought up is self-care. My friend Leah and I have started this once a month community. It's a combination of breath work, meditation, yoga, and it's only $10. We're never going to increase it. And for every $10, this is across the board, every class you pay for gives a scholarship to someone else. So we're all giving back. And so the self-care class is awesome. It's an hour and a half, and everything that we do in it, you can do in your chair or on the bed or on the floor. And each month we do something different. There's the best 3 months. That's a 7-week course on how to plan your own end of life plan. It's a deep dive though, so you got to be ready for that. And then at the bedside is a class that is the introduction to being an end-of-life doula. So I hand over what it would take to become a doula. And then I have doula certificated programs come and speak about what they offer so that you have a wide variety to choose from. But mostly what I think the misconception about being a doula and getting your certificate is that doesn't actually make you a doula. Bedside experience makes you the doula. Getting a certificate is a piece of paper, really. You have to earn that and spend time at the bedside and know what that means. So all of these classes you could just go to my website and read about them, which is thehospiceheart.net. And I do offer scholarships. If it's about finances, please reach out. I'm fine with making payments or paying half. I am aware that I deserve to be paid for them, so I think the pricing is fair, but I also want to make it easy for others to take them. So you can visit my website if you're interested.
Thank you. So I, of course, have a ton of questions. This isn't about me. I'm wanting to share the space with the people that have graciously joined us today. So within the last 10 minutes, I wanted to just, if anyone has any questions, please just put those in the chat. And then questions for Gabby, please feel free to just put them in the chat. I feel so honored to, I don't want to keep talking though. So if somebody has any questions, feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep talking, but.
Or they can raise their hand and just ask.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Does anyone have a question?
Karen. All right. Let me
Hi there.
see.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gabby. So, one of my favorite shows is off the air now called This Is Us. I
Oh,
wondered if you saw the train episode. I think if you aren't a fan of This Is Us, I highly recommend watching that episode before Rebecca dies. I thought it was amazing, and I wanted to get your input on that as well, because I just thought they did such a magnificent job of death through that last season. And even the Barbie movie talks about
oh,
death.
yeah.
So we're starting to get
Oh, yeah.
some death talking on. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that. Thank
Oh,
you.
This Is Us did such a beautiful job, really depicting what it feels like for the body to let go, what might happen, maybe the visions that people see, the conversations that people have. And they also, just the way the family really rallied around her, honoring her wishes, really leaning in, like Christine said, and just seeing what she needs. The Resident, which is a medical TV series, they also did a fantastic job. There's so many shows right now that are really bringing the death into it. There's another one too. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. It's about a group of friends, and the one friend died. I can't remember. Not This Is Us. I can't remember. But anyway, there are a lot of really great TV series right now that are talking about it. Like you said, the Barbie movie. And I think it's because we're raising enough awareness now that the conversation it's been like trying to squeak through the cracks for so long now, and finally the cracks have widened. And so, yes, thank you, Karen. A million little things. They did such a great job. That whole thing, the way they just touched on that. And yeah, you guys, there's some great shows. They really did a wonderful job. We're upping our game.
Okay, so I haven't completed This Is Us, and now I know that Rebecca dies. Spoiler.
Well, it's not like it just happened.
I can't get through those too many at a time. It's very hard to watch. So,
It's very
but
emotional.
beautiful. Yes. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Terry's got her hand up.
Yeah. Hi,
Hi,
Gabby.
Terry.
Hi.
I would like to know, end of life doulas, we're very up and coming. Where do you see us going? How do you see our future? What's coming on? What's going to happen?
Honestly, I don't think we're going to be part of the hospice team. It's not going to be under the Medicare benefit. I think it's always going to be out of pocket. But what I do see is hospices teaching their volunteers to be doulas so they can offer doulas at no cost. Volunteers don't get paid. So I really feel that, unfortunately, on that side of things, it's going to be maybe redirected and implemented into the hospice team in that way. I think that it is becoming a little bit more known now, and that's just going to increase. And I think personally, I think the best thing to do is to be a part of a group that offers doula services, because you're more likely to get clients that way, unless you're in a community where word of mouth is prevalent. I'm getting doula clients by word of mouth, and then I get them just before they start hospice. And because I'm a hospice nurse, I will be able to see them. As many of you know who are doulas, you can't be a hospice nurse if you're a doula. I think the doulas need to come together and build communities within their neighborhoods and build that, so that there's maybe not safety in numbers, but to be able to create a doula organization where someone can say, oh, this group handles the Bay Area. So I think that there's a lot of that happening now. And that would be something if I wasn't a hospice nurse, I would probably be more inclined to be a part of that, just because I think it would be a really great resource. Unless you have a lot of referral bases, it's really hard to do the business. It's hard. And one of the things I do is train volunteers to be doulas, because in my mind, they're already doulas. So it's an easy train, but I don't I don't see it happening anytime soon where hospice says, and we offer doulas and it's a paid position. I'd like to see that changed though. And I'm not giving up hope. One of the things I've noticed at my work is that they'll say, Gabby, can you see this person? They really need a doula. And I'll say, so are we telling them I'm a doula? No, you're just going to go and be you, the doula, but as a nurse. I'm thinking, oh, okay, so you're getting a 2-for-1 there. But I'm okay with it because it means that I get to do that extra kind of work that hospice nurses don't necessarily get to do. As a hospice nurse, I'm a better nurse because of my doula experience. And it's very fine line. So when I have my doula clients, I can't be a nurse. I have to stay in my line. In my lane, but I do see it getting more and more out there. I think we're going to hear more about them. And personally, back to what I just said, I would want to be a part of a community. That's just my thought. I don't know if that answered your question, Terry.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really good advice. What are your thoughts on us being regulated? Just curious.
For example, what do you mean?
Like government regulated.
I think that would take away from what we do.
Yeah.
The thing about a doula is we have the luxury of time, so we can start at diagnosis and walk alongside someone on their journey through to their grief process. We don't ever close the door. We can stay longer. We can be a little more present for people. And I think if we had to follow policies and protocols and guidelines, it would take away from what we do. I'd like to stay what we're doing now and be able to offer what we do because I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stacy had put, this is exactly why Doula Givers is ending this standalone end of life doula course. I believe that they're combining it for it's a full package, just to include all of those things that you talked about. And Chris had said Reservoir Dogs is another series that addresses
yes.
youth death on a Native American reservation in a beautiful
Absolutely.
and sometimes
That's a
funny
great
way.
one.
All these things I got to watch.
I think I know our time is cut out, but I think going back to the doulas, I think like for me, for instance, I've pulled together some doulas that are in my area. And when I get asked, I'll refer them because you're an independent contractor. You know, this is your business. But I think we're better in numbers. And I think we need to create communities because people are going to start hearing about it. And with everybody so spread out, and there really isn't a way to find out who is good and who we should choose from. I think if we built little communities, we would be a little more accessible and we can refer one another because we don't do this work alone. We are a community. And I would like to see us form them all over the world so that people have access.
Yeah, and Chris says collaboration, not competition.
Absolutely. We're not in competition. We have to come together. We collaborate. We are a community. We are not a solo act. I love referring to doulas.
That's awesome. I do too. What area of California are you in? Rita is asking.
I am about 20 minutes south of San Francisco.
Okay. Are there any burning desires before we're at the top of the hour? Does anyone else have any questions for our lovely guest? Karen says that's what we're doing here in the Treasure Valley. Karen is
I love that.
We're joining forces here in Southern Idaho. So exciting. So
I
exciting.
love that. Keep doing that, Karen.
I want to thank Darcy because Darcy's been helping me manage she's my co-host. So thank you, Darcy. She's another fellow doula. And then also, Gabby, how can people find you? How can we locate you?
I would say if you just go to my website, everything is there. I don't think we use www anymore, but I will. www.thehospiceheart.net. My blogs, podcasts that I've done, links to my books, the classes, everything is there. And there's even a link to the Hospice Heart Facebook page. So I would say go to my website, everything's there.
Okay, thank you so much. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, I'm Christine Souza, and my Reiki and end of life doula website is called True North Awakening, and you can find me there. And I have a Facebook page as well. Gabby, I just can't thank you enough. There's so all these thank you, beautiful. I just can't thank you enough. This has been amazing, and I'm so grateful. I don't even know how I found you, Gabby. You just appeared, and I read all of your books, and then I started following you on Facebook, and you have been such a gift to me. And I am forever grateful for your generosity of spirit and the good work that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you.
The feeling is mutual, Christine. I would do anything for you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I so appreciate you
for
guys
being
taking the
here.
time. Thank you so much. All right. Everybody have a good night. Bye, Gabby.
Everyone. Bye-bye.